Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to a brand new season of Inside Furman Athletics. Teams are back on campus, and so are we, ready to rock and roll for the 2025-26 athletic year. And what better way to start it off than with the man who is in charge of making sure everything goes well around here on the athletic side. Just like being at home, isn't it, Jason Donnelly?
It is, and Dan, it's great to be with you. We're actually up here in the press box,
Yes.
And we've broken the heat wave, and we can see our football team down there practicing in the rain. And we're trying to figure out if this is a welcome break from the heat or if this is not what they want. But it's really good to be starting up again. So
Knowing Clay as well as I do, and when I was out at the first day of practice over the weekend, it was his 40th first day going back to his playing days.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's got that a bit of that old school mentality. I know he wants it hot.
Yeah.
And he told them after practice, before he let them go for the rest of the day's activities, that they got a break on that first day because it wasn't so hot, and it looks like they're going to get a break all this week.
Yeah. He loves the heat, and I do think it gives us an edge and an advantage in the South. Great sense of pride, great sense of preparation that comes with it. I also know that he likes the rain. He likes the opportunity. He talks to the team about how to prepare for the rain, how to prepare just watching a catch right there, a throw, footwork, all those things that come with it. So Clay is one of those guys that will make the best of any circumstance that he's given. But it's not a downpour of rain, but it's different than what they've had. But it's very exciting to see this team back. That was one of the things I enjoyed too, was going over the first day of practice. And one of the things that stood out to me right off the bat was not many yellow shirts.
No.
So the year before it was just dozens of guys that were out at different points. You go to practice and you'd be looking at who's out versus who's in practice. So it was very encouraging. I think I only saw 2 yellow shirts on the first day.
Dwayne Vaughn and I walked off the practice field together, and we were talking about that the number of injuries that hit this team a year ago, and the number of them that were season-ending injuries, reaching double digits, and guys who started third and fourth on the depth chart ended up having to start and play really before they were ready to do so. So now with a healthy group and those guys having that experience, you would think, and this is where Dwayne was going, that's going to make everybody better.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things that when you have an extraordinarily special season like we did 2 years ago, when everything appears to go right, everything means the practices, the health. It means execution, how you handle adversity, penalties, all those different things that you march through in a season. And 2 years ago, we couldn't be prouder of all the things. You take one game out of there, you take the Wofford game out of there, and it's an almost flawless season for the program. And we just were, immensely proud. Last year was hard. Last year was a hard season for the players. It was a hard season for the staff, but there was a lot of learning. There was a lot of growth, and we're hopeful that a lot of that will carry over into this season in terms of depth and understanding and growth and strength. And one of the things that really matters also is that when you have a new team is that sometimes injuries come when you're learning how to lift and how to get healthy and how to go through the process for a strength conditioning program. So after another year, certainly very encouraged and excited about football. But Dan, how was your summer? Because we all missed you. What were you up to?
A lot of baseball at the Greenville Drive and a lot of family time.
Good.
We've got a new granddaughter, and she's 3.5 months old and already running the show at her house.
Yeah.
So just trying to take advantage of that opportunity to spend time with Angela and the kids and the grandkids, and still got a couple little things on the front burner before season starts.
Good.
So we're in good shape.
Well, we appreciate you, Dan, and one of the things that we do in the summer is we try to catch our breath as an athletic department. This was a very busy summer, very hectic summer. I'm actually shocked that we're getting to the point of school starting up very quickly. Public schools are getting started next week, so we're definitely in everything that we're getting into here. Last year, just to recap, it was an incredible year for Furman Athletics. We're incredibly proud of the success that all of our programs had. We wound up finishing as the number one ranked athletic department in the Southern Conference according to the Learfield standings. That's something that Furman's been doing on a routine basis, and we finished as a top 100 athletic department overall, which is really remarkable compliment to the athletes, to the coaches, and to everyone that's involved. The support that goes to put that all together is not possible without our donors and everyone that supports the teams and the things that we do. We had 7 different championships across all of our sports. We had 7 different postseasons, which was really remarkable. And then Dylan Schubert with cross country, who finished number 3 in the country in cross country, and Audrey Rue from golf, who wound up becoming the champion for the Southern Conference and breaking the record at the Southern Conference tournament, and going on to the NCAA Nationals, was the women's SoCon Athlete of the Year. And it's the 3rd time in 4 years that Furman has swept that individual awards, which is a great compliment to the athletes and to the coaches. On a sadder side of things, yesterday we celebrated the life of Raymond Newsom, who was a great friend to many of Furman Paladin for a long time, having gone to school at Furman in the 60s, an incredible friendship, staying close to Greenville with his business and his family, and really being a true Paladin in terms of his mentorship and his giving and his support. And for me, a very, very close friend who we spent a lot of time strategizing on Furman athletics. And but we had a very special day here on campus with him and his family, his wife Carol, his children, his grandchildren, and the whole church was packed in honor of Raymond's life. So we celebrate his life, and we will miss him dearly. It was also the first chance that Raymond was one of the people behind the scenes to make sure that Timmons Arena got put together. And we used the opportunity to bring his family and friends into Timmons to celebrate Raymond's contributions to the arena, and that was a special opportunity to share Timmons. So update number 1, just wanted to let everybody know Timmons Arena is coming along incredibly well. Our target was to get the building ready for August. We've now reached August. We're in the finishing stages, a lot of work that needs to get done. And you'll be receiving an announcement today inviting everyone to join us on Monday, August 25th at 4 o'clock. We'll have a ribbon cutting and an open house that is open to all of our season ticket holders, all of our fans, the students, faculty, staff, everyone that's been involved with this institution is going to be welcome to be a part of that. The media, outside community members. It's just be basically an opening of the building, and the building will not be completely done. The final date to be ready for will be the October 26th Alabama basketball game, which will serve as the first game in Timmons Arena. There's a lot of work behind the scenes, and there's a lot of details that need to still be finished that we have time to complete. But the ribbon cutting will be on Monday, August 25th, and we want to share with the community that everyone is welcome to come out. And depending on when you get this, or you might get the announcement first, one of those two things will happen. Either you'll hear from us on this podcast, or you'll hear from the university inviting you to join us on that date.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I guess that will be the day that I get to see it, because I told you on this interview before that I purposed in my mind that when I walked out of Timmons after the last broadcast we did, I wasn't going to go back in until it was done, because I want the wow factor.
Good.
So I'm looking forward to the 25th. I just want to say something about Raymond Newsom too.
Yep.
People probably don't understand the role that he played in the rejuvenation of Furman basketball that we've seen. It was Raymond who spearheaded the group that, in effect, raised the money to make this a more attractive position, that brought Nico Medved in here, which was my 3rd year in the program.
Yeah.
So I've seen the evolution from where it was when we used to joke that you could fire off a cannon in Timmons and not hit anybody, to now the incredible new facility that we're going to be walking into. He was the one who spearheaded that, going back all of those years ago.
Yeah, I mean, Raymond's been involved with every coaching search. Raymond's been involved with the retention of the coaches, and I can say with the fact that Nico would not have been here. I can tell you with the fact that Bob Ritchie wouldn't have been here. I can tell you the fact that Bob Ritchie would not continue to be here if it wasn't for Raymond. For me, I wouldn't probably still be here if it wasn't for Raymond, because he has been an advocate, an ally, a resource, a mentor, a friend, a father figure. And he and I would travel to games, and we would strategize with donors, and we would strategize with Bob and the basketball program on how to build what this is. And Raymond wasn't limited to just basketball. He was involved with every athletic program here. He supported each and every one of them, and the footballs and the golf programs and the soccer programs, and everyone that's had an ownership stake here. And the best defining feature of Raymond is just his love for this institution, and he wanted to celebrate the past, and he was a steward of that history. He wanted to make sure that we were doing everything we could to maximize our opportunities here in the present. The thing he would want the most would be a packed Timmons Arena, a loud student section, a well-played game, and a Furman win. Those are the things that would make him happy, and the camaraderie that would come with that. And then he wanted to invest in the future. He was one of the people that really, truly believed that Furman athletics can impact in a positive way the ability for us to market this institution and to support the greater goals of Furman University. So his friendship, his impact will be missed. And then the other thing I would tell you is that this has come up a lot. I've heard people say they're sad that Raymond won't be there when we play our first game. I will just tell you from my perspective, and this is someone who's been intimately involved with him in this process, I would not be sad. I would be happy because Raymond knew every step we took in this process, the fundraising, the development, the approval process, the construction, design. I mean, there's many people he leaned on to make sure they made a gift to make this happen. His name will be proudly displayed in the arena, the Newsom family suites, and he'll be there with us. He was. You could feel it yesterday, and you'll be able to feel it moving forward. But I would not be sad. I just would be happy and proud of what he's accomplished and where this is headed and where he wants it to continue to head. But I appreciate the segue to talk more about Raymond.
Well, and I think the key phrase you used there was moving forward, because that's what he'd want, and that's what we have to do, right?
Yep, that's what we do.
Well, let's do that. For, I guess, about the better part of 2 years during these Ask the AD segments with you, we have been talking about the changes looming over college athletics with the lawsuits and everything else going on and the House settlement, and now that's happened.
Yes.
We can't say we're at the end, but we're getting close. Would that be?
Yeah. Yeah, so we've been talking about this in almost every podcast that this is an evolution of change in college athletics. And in a lot of ways, you can use the House settlement as the beginning of the professionalization of college sports. To say that how do we get to the point that different areas recognize that we've reached a point where the sharing of resources, and whether that be through name, image, and likeness, or whether that be through revenue share, whatever it is that you determine to say that we've reached that point. And the House settlement has been the legislation with the intention to pull all of it together, to get to the point that we can all agree on different terms, both with institutions, NCAA, student athletes, and it's been a class action lawsuit that's gone on. And the timeline of this is that this was all supposed to get wrapped up around March of this past year. It took longer than that. The deadlines got extended into the month of June. And there was different pieces of legislation that were introduced that brought this together. But the case has been settled. The case has closed, which means that for the next 10 years, the NCAA has an understanding of how we'll operate and what framework we'll operate in. And this goes all the way from the base level of how do you admit students and how do you work with student athletes and their families, goes all the way to the president. The president's weighed on this recently in terms of things that take place as a part of this settlement. So one of the things I've tried to share with everyone is that in spite of this legislation, it's been a process that almost changes daily. So it's hard to put your finger on something and say this is what it's going to be, because it could change again, and it's going to be an evolution of those processes. But what it basically means is that athletic institutions at the Division I level are now permitted to provide permissible benefits to student athletes that they weren't able to provide before. If you go backwards, there's $2.8 billion in settlement damages that are paid to student athletes for the 10 years before that, of which anyone that's a Division I institution participates in. If you wish to not be a Division I institution, you wouldn't be subject to those payments. The NCAA pays the bulk of that. The Power Four pay the next amount of that, and then schools such as Furman are paying that. Even though we might not be paying an athlete that played for us, we're going to be paying as a part of that to be there. For Furman University, we've gone through the process of evaluating all of this, and I've shared this with our coaches, with our departments. I've shared this with our faculty, with our staff, with our administration, with our trustees. But I've said all along, I said we're going to wind up opting into this because at the end of the day, it's in Furman's best interest to opt in to permit us to be competitive, to focus on recruiting, to focus on retention, to focus on revenue. So we have opted in as an institution to be a part of this. And what does that mean for Furman? What it means is that we are now able to provide permissible benefits through the NCAA for student athletes that meet the competitive thresholds that other programs at this level have. What it does not mean is, like, if you look at Clemson, if you look at Alabama, they're going to have $20 million in revenue share that comes directly from the institution. We don't have that. That's not how our institution operates. That's not the budget and the ability that we have to do that. So you're going to see some schools, Clemson, Alabama, South Carolina, that are going to be in that space. It'll be different. There'll be a different professionalization of that model. The majority of that money will go to football at that size and scale, which, if you're Ohio State, think about it this way. If you got a $220 million budget, $20 million is just a drop in the bucket as a part of that process. So you got to look at the highest threshold of what this is, and you got to look at what the smallest schools are impacted by this from our standpoint. What it means for Furman is that we will have the ability with donors to fund the ability to have permissible benefits, or have donors have the ability to participate in revenue share and different opportunities that will take place as a part of this process. This is not a huge game changer for Furman on day one. This is not something that changes our programs overnight. This isn't something you're going to see colossal changes in the way that we operate. If anything, we've already been operating in this space for several years now. But what it allows us to do is it allows us to compete at the competitive level that we need to be at in order to be a competitive Division I athletic department. When you look at the final numbers of the decision here, 82% of Division I teams opted in for this settlement. Schools that previously said we're not going to opt in for this thing changed their mind at the deadline, and they chose to opt in. That would include schools at the FCS level that compete just like us. 8 out of 10 Southern Conference schools chose to opt in, which includes everyone in our conference, including the private schools. It does not include Citadel and VMI. And as military institutions, they've got a different place in this. You know, Army and Navy got a different place in this in terms of where they fit. The Ivy League has a different place in this in terms of where they fit. So different conferences or different affiliations make different decisions. For Citadel and VMI, they're still evaluating this, and there is a desire for them to opt in, but they've got their own things that they got to figure out, their institutions that are bigger than just this for us. What this means on our campus is there's roster caps that come into play, so it's roster caps instead of scholarship limits when it comes to the house settlement. It's not a major change, and this is one of the reasons why many schools chose to opt in. Student athletes are grandfathered in. So it means they're designated student athletes are a part of these rosters. So we don't see an attrition as a part of this process over the next 3-4 years, but we have to prepare for where we'll be 3-4 years down the road where this is. There's actually, in some cases, an opportunity to expand. You know, there's a chance in some of our rosters to increase opportunities for student athletes. There's also an opportunity for us to increase opportunities with other sports if we choose to go down that path. So we would be ready to do that as well.
I'll let Jason grab a drink to clear his throat and remind you you're watching Inside Furman Athletics. Our first new we'd had the bonus edition a couple of weeks ago with new softball coach Mary Beth Dennison, but this is the first of our new weekly series moving forward in the new athletic year. I guess the one question I wanted to get, since you did take a breath there, is there was a significant pushback by schools Furman size, conferences Furman size, as this was all coming down over the last several months. And the pushback basically was, hey, wait a minute. We didn't have anything to do with what was going on at the big money schools that caused all of this. Why are we being forced, their words, why are we being forced to pay for something that we didn't have a part of?
Yeah, and that was pushback number one, and that happened very early in the process, and I think that was probably the big conversation in the summer of 2024. The reality is that it's a class action lawsuit. We're a Division I institution. We're a participating member. And really what the NCAA said, if you don't agree with this, then you don't have to be a part of it. And it wasn't intended to be take your bag and go. This was, if you want to be a Division I member, then you've got to participate in this. It's not the end of the world. Like, we'll have a revenue loss of distributions of about $300,000 a year for the next 10 years. It's not the end of the world. Now, it's a challenge, but it's not the end of the world. The disparity is that they'd say, well, the student athletes are going to get paid for this, or student athletes that didn't play for Furman. At the end of the day, the biggest decision we had to make in that space was, do you want to be Division I? And the answer for Furman is yes. We want to be Division I. We want to compete at this level. We want to be a part of the championships that we're currently a part of. So the decision for us in the conference early on was early on it was called opting in, and we opted in then. The second part of this opting in process is to opt into the terms of the settlement and to figure out if this is something that you wanted to be a part of in terms of the permissible benefits, the roster caps, the ability to spread scholarships out in this way, all those different things. The Southern Conference has got, they maintain limits in scholarships. Everyone has competitive equity in the conference. So they've provided it. So I don't think we're outside of our skis. But what this allows us to do, it allows us to be in a space to compete at the highest possible level if we wish to do so in the sports that we want to do so as a university. And because this is not coming from the budget from within Furman, it really isn't a major change for what we're doing at Furman. So that's just the update on where things stand. There's a timeline to this, and there's also processes in this. We'll certainly communicate this at a higher level at another point, but there's some details that are back-end details that we've been working through. But I want, I've been saying we're going to opt in since October. It got to a point where I realized in order for us to be a competitive athletic department at the level that we wish to be, this was the right decision for us. It's the right decision for our teams, our coaches, our student athletes, our fans, and our institution. There really, in my mind, is not a negative to doing this because I always look at everything. If there's a problem, what's the solution? If you can determine the solution, then you've got to go with that process, and that's where we've got to. So this positions us in a really good way. What I told some of our coaches said, this really doesn't have a major impact on most of you. For some of you, it's going to be an opportunity and a place to go, but for most of you, it's going to be about the same.
Part of your job, as I think everyone knows, involves fundraising, facilitating fundraising, and we always joke if you're going to be a fundraiser, you have to be a salesman. Mm-hmm. When it comes to this school, and we know the feeling on the academic side about how proud they are of academics, as they should be, and the feeling on the athletic side about how proud we are of athletics and our belief that they can all be great together. Did you have to sell the opt-in to the other side of campus at all?
Yeah, I did. And it's what I would want you to know is, like, I've said this pretty consistently about Furman over the last several years. If you look at Furman as an institution, 9 out of 10 things here are going incredibly well. Like we got great academics, we got great people, we got great athletics, beautiful campus. We got tremendous fundraising, tremendous exposure. There are so many things that are going well for Furman University. What I've had to try to actually educate our coaches on and our alumni is that the challenges we have for athletics are not the highest on the list. At some schools, the athletics issue was the highest thing on the list for them because they had to figure this out at a higher level, and they were at the tip of the spear for this when you're looking at some institutions in terms of what this was. This was much lower on Furman's list in terms of challenges that we have at Furman. The bigger challenges for Furman is how does a school of this size and scale fit into the larger higher education landscape when you're talking about enrollment cliff, when you're talking about the cost and value of education, when you're talking about competitive resources, when you're talking about scholarships and discount rate, when you're talking about where does college universities fit into FAFSA issues when it comes to just federal funding for colleges, researches, and grants. So if you think about where this fits, this is high on the list of a priority that we got to get it right for Furman, but it's not the highest priority that fits. The greatest challenge that Furman has and will continue to have is the impact of enrollment and net tuition on the ability for the institution to operate. One of the challenges we have at Furman, since I've been here, our budget has not been increased. And most people be like, that's crazy. You've had 20% plus inflation. All these expenses you have, they've never been adjusted. Nothing's changed. And that's where fundraising and the ability for us to drive revenue has been paramount. Because if we haven't been able to fundraise and we haven't been able to drive revenue, that's why we do this show, to make sure everybody's educated. If we can't fundraise or drive revenue, we can't operate as an athletic department. Mm-hmm. And we certainly can't be successful in the spaces we're in. So the gratitude that we have for our donors and the space that we have in this place is driven by that. There's even a misconception. Sometimes people say, well, the football program hasn't gotten an increase in funding at some point. My staff will share that with me, and this is something that Clay will talk about. Well, last year, every part of our department got reduced. Every single part of our department got reduced except for football. Football was something to say we can't reduce in football. We can't change the finances here. We can't make these changes of what it is. So football did not. If anything, we invested in football, in strategic ways through donor funding and things that we did around that. Guarantee games come up. Guarantee games are one of the most important things we have to do for this football program, because that money directly goes to offset the largest expense that we have in our department, which are 60 scholarships for the football program. If you look at our athletic department budget, revenues, expenses, we're right in line with our peers in terms of where our spend is for what we do and how we do it. But the only space that's really challenging the size and scale of our school on a balance sheet is balancing 60 scholarships for a football program. But yet we all know how important football is at Furman, how important it is in South Carolina, how important it is to our alumni base, how important it is to drive revenue. So I've had to educate the faculty, staff, administration, trustees on. Sometimes people think like, well, if you just stop doing this, then this would be easier to do here. You'd have less money there. It's actually factually incorrect. If you were to change Furman football and to go to a non-scholarship model for Furman football, it actually would be more expensive to operate football. It sounds counterintuitive, but it would be more expensive to have a non-scholarship football program than it would be to have a scholarship football program at this level. If you were to change Furman athletics and say we want to be a Division III model, this is the stuff I have to educate them on, it would actually be more expensive to be a Division III model than it would be to be a Division I model, because if you take the revenues out, if you take the fundraising out, if you take all the things that we do incredibly well on the other side of the ledger, like if you give away all the revenue and all the fundraising and you reduce, you actually have the same expenses, but with more, because the travel is further. So one of the questions I get all the time is, what's the value of the Southern Conference? Well, the Southern Conference greatest value to Furman and to Wofford and East Tennessee State and to all these schools that are in it is actually regionality. Regionality is the reason the Southern Conference has been maybe the longest standing conference in America that has not changed. We have not seen any reductions. We've not seen any additions, because the camaraderie amongst the conference is so strong. It allows us to compete. It allows us to have the right balance. It has us the right integrity. That's why this all works. It's the magic in the whole sauce.
Yeah, I've heard people say, well, you could stay D1 but go Pioneer League and, non-scholarship. And I said, have you looked at where the Pioneer League stretches from? Yeah. It stretches from Presbyterian College to San Diego and everywhere in between.
So you'd have one home game against Davidson or Presbyterian, have one away game that's close by, and you'd have everything else would be on a plane.
Right.
So like you can't, like, our greatest expense is when we have to get on a plane with the football program and figure out how to go about doing that when we have a great regional opportunity to do that. So it's also understanding the inside of what the math is and how that comes about. The average travel for a Southern Conference, I think, and I don't have the numbers in front of me at the moment, I think it's like 397 miles average across the conference.
The two schools that have the farthest to travel are the two at the ends. Yeah,
yep. VMI
and Sanford. It's like a 9-hour trip between the two.
But they get to play everybody in the middle. So for them, they got to look at how do you schedule, and the conference works on that scheduling side. But if you play in a Pioneer League, your average travel is close to 2,000 miles. Right. It's a completely different experience in terms of what you're trying to do. So I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I think it's like 397 versus 1,500.
Yeah. So taking the House settlement and everything that's happened and is still happening, all those years ago when you decided, I might want to not be a coach and I might want to go into administration, did you have any idea what you were getting into?
This has been the greatest period of change in college athletics, and they're going to write books about it. They're going to go back and look at what was this model, and we're not even done. We're in the middle of it. So you're going to see even more changes over the next several years, and you're going to see a different model that evolves. So no, I never thought this was what it was going to be, but was very well prepared to handle these things based on great learning and mentorship and experience before this, strategic planning and thoughtfulness. But no, this was not the job. I've joked with some of my coaching friends saying, hey, if I went back to coaching tomorrow, it'd be a lot easier than this. It's not what I thought of. And they have stress too. Their whole models change in terms of the way that they recruit and the way that they retain. So their model's different than it was when I was coaching. So it's a different thing. But what I want everyone to walk away from this is that Furman is really well positioned to be successful in the model that we're in. But we have to continue to emphasize donor support and revenue generation and creative opportunities for our department. We've got to continue to be a great partner on this campus for academics and student life and finance and facilities. And all these different things that we're doing. So we're really well positioned to do all those things based on what we've done to date. And we've got tremendous people, and we've got people that believe in this institution. So I'm not worried about it, but we have to keep adapting. Or if we don't adapt, we will die. You know, we've got to keep changing as we go.
So I'll just take that opportunity to remind you, talking about revenue, that Dwight Covington would love to sell you some tickets, season tickets to football, season tickets to basketball. All that stuff is available, so you can check with Dwight there. Anything else on your list that you came in with?
I think we're good. I think let's get to the questions.
Okay.
You know, obviously excited. Doug Allison's last season's a big deal. We want to talk about that and celebrate Doug Allison will retire at the end of this soccer season. I'm really glad that you've had Mary Beth Dennison here for softball. Excited to have a brand new stellar coach to lead the softball program. Furman's going into its bicentennial year, so you expect to hear a lot of information about Furman celebrating its 200th year in the year ahead. We're excited to open Timmons and continue to work on the projects that we have in front of us. But yeah, let's probably get to the questions in the interest of time.
All right, so you've already answered the first question. Details of the Timmons reveal, August the 25th, 4 o'clock, the ribbon cutting and
Everyone's
the open
welcome.
house.
Everyone,
Okay.
yeah, come on through.
We know that the exhibition game with Alabama is going to be the first game there. The question that kind of follows that up is what type of game should we expect for the first actual regular season home game in Timmons
Yeah.
for the men. The women's going to be Clemson.
Yes. Well, not the first one. So this is Alabama's the first game in
Right,
Timmons Arena,
right.
and this is done strategically. We even hosted the Timmons family a week ago in the arena, and they actually asked the question, how come why not play against somebody you can beat? And I'm hoping we can beat Alabama, but I understood the question. Everyone has a different interpretation of what they want their first game experience to be. Some people want to play a big name opponent. Some people want to make sure they get the win. It really doesn't. I know this is going to sound from a basketball perspective. It doesn't matter on the basketball side as much. This is about having experience for our fans. We're going to treat Alabama as the first game. It is a big deal. We're grateful to Alabama. We're grateful to Nate Oates. Great job, Bob Ritchie, and the relationships with the basketball programs. No one will play us, so we can't get a guaranteed game. We can't get a game not at Timmons Arena. We can't get a game on the road against a Power 4 opponent right now because the way this whole net has worked out, that's one of the biggest changes, is that teams don't want to play a potential top 100 team on their home court. There's no advantage to doing this in the way that the net is set up. So scheduling has made a big change in the last several years. So the ability to get Alabama in here, we're treating that as the first game in Timmons Arena. Then the men's basketball team is going to go on the road and play a great mid-major game against High Point in the Jeff Goodman-sponsored event. That's actually something that Bob Ritchie really wants to push and drive attendance to be up there in Rock Hill. That's a big deal to him. We'll work on that as well. We do have a tentative first opponent as well that I'm not going to reveal at the moment because there's still details that get worked out in that. But that will be a basketball game in Timmons Arena that will open up as well. But we're gonna treat the Alabama game as our first game, and we get all these dimensions, guys. I open an arena at Villanova, and I can't even remember who the first opponent was. I remember who the second was. We played Michigan. I remember who the third was. We played Furman. So it's one of those things where I can't even remember who the first game was because we had so much else going on around there. But we didn't worry about who the pomp and circumstances were around that game. We worried about doing the best for the fans, for the arena, for the team. To get it right. That was really where our heads are, and that's really what we're trying to do here with Timmons Arena as well. The women will play Clemson at home, which is a huge deal for them, on Sunday, November 23rd. It's actually the day after we play Clemson in football.
Right.
So the goal is to get 2 wins over Clemson that weekend. So we want to win at football at Clemson, and we want to win against women's basketball here in the arena.
Well, opening with Alabama in an exhibition setting gives you the best of both worlds, really, because you get to have the pomp and circumstance of having a big-name opponent in there. You can treat it like I don't want to say real game because it is a real game, even though it won't count in the standings. But the best part is it won't count in the standings.
Yeah. Well,
unless you win, then it's like, man, why couldn't we count this one in the standings?
Yeah,
right?
everybody's going to keep score. We're going to play our rotations. We're going to play to win. We're going to play to complete.
Yeah.
And I think what we need a fan base to know is that there is no motivation for a big school team to leave their home court anymore, both from a scheduling perspective, from a financial perspective. One of my friends is a good friend of mine is an ACC AD, and I talked to him about it. He said, JD, he goes, the amount of money we lose by going on the road, he goes, the amount of money we make with a home game, it's astronomical. And this is for football and this is for basketball.
Right.
He goes, we do not go on the road unless we absolutely need to. For scheduling purposes and those things, but they have a format that they follow. But some of it's just revenue. It's like it doesn't even matter how much you would pay us. You can't pay us enough to come and play. So the fact that Nate Oates has the character and the resolve to say, I'm going to put my team in a tough situation early against a really well-coached Furman team, that says a lot about what Nate Oates is trying to get out of his season. He's trying to say, I want to put my team in a situation where, like you said, come win or lose, he's not necessarily losing points on that, but an opportunity to do that. And hopefully, God willing, we can keep this going with exhibitions. We did Auburn last year. We're going to do Alabama this year if we can keep having this opportunity. But, the purpose also of the Well, like we may not get to play a game in the Well this year. That's not confirmed. We haven't discussed anything about that as we open our inaugural season in Timmons. But the purpose of the Well is to give us an opportunity to play games when we want to exceed the capacity. So if it's 2750 standing room only, if we can play a game that will double attendance or if we can play a game that will triple attendance, we'll play it downtown. That'll be a part of our strategy, and it might give us an opportunity to get a team that would play us on that court. We're hosting the NCAAs this year. Like sometimes people just want to get a game in that arena because they want to play an NCAA game. But the metrics and scheduling have changed so much, and there's pressure from the conferences to not play a Furman. It's a bad game for them on their schedule, so they're not doing it.
All right, so Alabama answers that question. I think let's go to let's stay on basketball for a moment. First round opponents for the Orlando tournament. When will that schedule be announced?
So that's an ESPN event, and it's an ESPN televised event, and they will make the announcement. I'm not sure exactly when that will be. It's one of the advantages. I love us playing in MTE events or whatever these new terminology is for events. I think it's a great thing. I encourage Bob year in, year out to do it. I think it's a healthy thing for your team. It's a way to play really good competition on that level on a neutral site. Some of these teams that we're playing against that we've been in conversations about scheduling, we can't get them to come to Timmons, but they'll play us on a neutral court, which is a good thing. But I would imagine that'll get announced probably after Labor Day at some point. It's not urgent to them right now. They have a whole scheduling window for how they announce these games. But again, that's a great opportunity to go on the road with the basketball team over Thanksgiving, an opportunity to enjoy some time with the team and enjoy some time in Disney World. So I'm grateful that Bob's going to do this, and we're excited to get down there with him.
I think the only other basketball-related question we had was about the new conditioning coach for the basketball team.
And I before I got up here, I saw the question. I haven't met him yet. I mean, I've been at practice, and I've met the whole staff, and we've had a lot of turnover in staff, and this is just where you're at this time of year. I know Bob's talked to me about him, and I know where he comes from, and I know he's very highly regarded through Clemson. There's been connections there as well. But I'm blanking right now. Like, we have so many new people. Bob has 3 new assistant coaches, all of which are highly regarded and doing a great job. He's got a new trainer. He's got a new strength coach. And the one guy I've yet to meet yet is the new strength coach during my time with the team. I've been in the gym with him. I just haven't had the opportunity to make that introduction. But we've got brand new, the Bernardis moved on, and we've got Joe Novotowski's leading the team in strength conditioning and that whole unit with football. And we've got Mike Brown took over for Craig Clark. He's the new head trainer. We've got a lot of changes in staff over the last year, and it's all because of success. Like, everyone's getting these great jobs. More money, bigger jobs. This is exactly what we want for Furman, is that it's not about retaining people all the time. It's about developing them and getting them to the place where they want to be. And when we have a chance to move our people up, we want to do that for them. And then it's working incredibly hard to retain our leaders, our head coaches, our people that are here. And you see that through our efforts, this continuity with the staff. But very happy for everyone. But I have yet to meet the men's basketball strength coach.
And for people who don't know, I mean, Craig Clark, who was here forever. He's been here my entire tenure, was here before I got here. He left for Tulane. He's going to New Orleans. The Bernardis left for Western Michigan. So it's like you say, you're not losing people just falling by the wayside. They are taking what they've done here and developed, and they're moving on.
Yeah, and Craig Clark asked me in my first department meeting, he said, what is your retention strategy? And I said, guys, I don't have a retention strategy. I have a development strategy. All of this is intended to help everyone be happy, be compensated, to go through the process of going through your careers. And I don't have an expectation that people will be here forever. I've got an expectation that people will be happy, they're going to work hard, and they're going to do a great job for Furman. And they're going to move up the pipeline for bigger and better things along the way when they're ready. Craig was incredibly happy here at Furman, but he and his family are ready. They're ready for the next opportunity, ready to live in a new city. And and they're ready to move on from some of these challenges at this level to different challenges at the next level.
Yeah, and we know I've worked with Mike Brown pretty much since I've been here, so I know that Mike's going to do a great job there. But there's one aspect of Craig that Mike will never be able to replace, and I don't know that anybody on campus will, and that's the flamboyant dress on for certain events.
No one can outdo Craig Clark with his outfits and his color coordination and his everything. I mean, Craig, we're going to miss Craig.
Yeah.
Craig's humor and Craig's camaraderie. He was an incredible Paladin. He always will be an important part of this operation.
All right, I think we got 3 questions left. Yep. Going back to football, plans for adding a 12th football game starting next year. FCS level can play 12 moving forward. What's going to be the strategy there? Will it be to add another FBS team for revenue, or will it be to try to get a consistent 6th home game?
Yeah, so we've actually known about this change coming for about a year now. So we've had some conversations well ahead of this. I love it. I think it's great to add another game. You talk with the ADs who pushed this forward for our level. Part of the intent was to say, let's see if you can add another guarantee game for more revenue. Here's where this lies. This is going to lie entirely with Clay Hendricks, and I will tell you why. We have to figure out what our end game goal is for the football program in each season. And if you look at Clay's goals, there's all these different goals, everything from winning the national championship to winning the state title by beating everyone in the state of South Carolina to winning the Southern Conference. Mm-hmm. One of the goals is to be an FCS playoff team. So we have to figure out in the math, how does it work out to be an FCS playoff team? So I always say this to Clay, when you're doing your schedule at the end of the year, when you're sitting in the room with the team and you don't have an automatic bid and you're an at-large, are you comfortable with the schedule that you had in terms of preparing you and giving you the opportunity to get there? What's going to be really interesting in this process with the FCS playoffs is, are they going to base this on number of wins to get into the FCS playoffs? Are they going to base this on strength of schedule? Are they going to base this on percentage wins? It's one of the challenges. Even our commissioner came out strong against this, talking about the difference between us and the Colonial, the old Colonial. That the best people don't play each other. We play around robin. We have a true football conference. We were not happy with only getting one person in from the Southern Conference last year to the FCS playoffs. That's a debacle. That's a bad move on the part of the committee to not get a second Southern Conference team in, and we've got to work through this process of how do we prepare ourselves to be a playoff team. So if you look at it from my perspective, Clay's perspective, I want Clay to be sitting in a position at the end of the season to say, if you didn't win the Southern Conference, did you do enough to be able to get in the FCS playoffs? So the reason I say that is that I've said to Clay, if you want to go out and play an additional FBS team because that helps your budget, if the money directly goes back to your program, that makes your program stronger, then do that. If that's what you need to do, if that's your point of stress that you want. We actually had a really good FBS team that we could have played, and he chose not to. I wanted it to be his choice what he wants to do. Part of that's wear and tear. Part of that's just, does this fit into your dimensions of what you want to do? The process then is to look at who would we play at in the FCS level? Who would be a game? And Clay actually also might consider playing a non-FCS opponent because he just might want a game to get his team ready and to get them through this process of getting better into the season. So I'm leaving this entirely up to Clay, and I want him to make the best decision for what fits his program right. And whatever decision we make in 2026 will be made on short notice. As we plan ahead, it may be different as we plan ahead. So 2026 will not be a good barometer of what that decision will be because you're literally only having 1 week to add to your schedule. Whereas in the future, you'll have the ability to space it out and figure that out. But this decision will be based on what Clay wants to do. If Clay wants to play 2 FBS programs because he says it helps us financially or visibility, have at it. If Clay wants to play an additional FCS opponent to get another win to get to the FCS playoffs, that would be what I would prefer. I would prefer to be competing for the FCS playoffs. If Clay wants to play a non-FCS opponent because he believes his team needs that kind of experience and that kind of process, then Clay will make that decision. But what I'd want you all to know as an athletic director, this is my experience in coaching, this is my experience in scheduling, is I want the coaches to be empowered to make that decision because ultimately it's their postseason that they're impacting. I want him to make that decision in this process.
The other football-related question was that the PC game was originally announced as 2 o'clock, and it's now TBA, which I checked the schedule, and it does say TBA now on the schedule. So is it going to be a night game, or is it just a misprint, or what?
Yeah, we're still working through that process. as an athletic department, as an institution, we want to play night games. That's an important part of what we do. But we also have to look at structurally what's the impact on that on campus and the impact out in facilities and all the other things through it. So we're still trying to work through the process of making that decision around the kickoff time. That release was inadvertently sent out before the final decision was made on time. So we're just waiting on that as a part of that process. I would love to give you a more direct reason for that at the moment, but we're still working through the background on that. So we'll get back to everyone as soon as we have a better feel for when that time will be and when that game will be. But that was inadvertently announced as a 2 o'clock game, and we're not 100% sure that game will be at 2 yet.
And then finally, update on apparel. The questioner said it seems like most of the merchandise in the student store is outdated and not even current uniforms.
Yeah, I love this question. And I just would tell you from my perspective, every time I hear it, I'm like, this is awesome. I love that our fans are engaged in this and want to know more, and I want you to have great gear. I'm just some levels away from this, so I don't always get to feel this. What I would tell you is we've had some turnover in the areas both on campus side and on the athletic side that have been covering this. We did address it as a staff when we saw the question. What I would do is I would encourage, if you have a question, please send me an email. We'd love to get you involved further with this process, and we'd love to have you be on the ground with what you want and what you need as a part of that. I want to be open to whatever ideas you have and things that you want to have. I want to have them too. But then I'll get you connected with our staff who are working on this, and we'll have you talk to them and hopefully get the gear that you want as a part of this process. But we've gone through a process, some turnover, some changes, and we've got to do a better job with getting the gear updated. That's going out from Furman.
That's it from a question standpoint. Anything you need to add? No,
I just want to thank everyone for your support. Thank you for getting behind the teams. I want to encourage you. We have a football fan day coming up on Saturday, August 16th. That's coming up in about 2 weeks. Come out, meet the team, autographs, have some fun, see the coaches, get your first look at the team on the field. Definitely looking forward to seeing everyone here on August 30th for our home opener versus William & Mary. That's a pivotal game as we talk about FCS playoff implications. The following day, we have a men's soccer home game. We're retiring Clint Dempsey's jersey in honor of Clint, and also as a part of Doug's retirement tour. We have his final season. And then we'd love to see all of you on Monday, August 25th, if you could join us for the Timmons Arena ribbon cutting and open house. And we look forward to sharing the brand new building with you and getting the academic year started that day.
So just a few things going on is what you're telling us.
Just a few things. Same as always.
Well, that will take care of this first edition for the new athletic year of Inside Furman Athletics. Coming up inside the next couple of weeks, Clay Hendricks will be sitting in this chair. Don't know if it's going to be next week or the week after, but I've already touched base with him, so you'll get to go deep into the football program. We'll start working our way through our fall sports coaches and some athletes as we normally do. Thank you for tuning in. Jason, as always, thank you, and we'll talk to you again next time. For Jason Donnelly and all of us at Furman, I'm Dan Scott saying God bless you, and so long, everybody.
Thank you, Dan.